is an ultimate global podcast. Hello, and welcome to our special weekly podcast on trending international and social affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.
So welcome everyone to another exciting episode of Ultimate Global Podcast. And as you can see, the excitement that I have at this point of time, of course, we have got a very different guest from another country, which we are adding up to the pile. But we're getting closer and closer to our first anniversary, and that makes me more exciting in every episode because that takes me back to the journey when we started off with this podcast series with a hope to get connected with people, with a hope to create an impact through the stories that we are sharing on this podcast. And I'm quite happy that some of the episodes have in fact created the impact because we have got a lot of engagement on platforms like LinkedIn. And we have also got feedback from people. And just for everyone's reference, I had my graduation this year. And when I went for my graduation in Sydney, some people just recognized me on the basis of the fact that I'm running this podcast. I haven't even met those people, and they said that I have seen you somewhere in one of the podcast series. So I think that has been the influence and the impact, which I personally did not think that it will happen, but definitely quite happy to do that. Today's podcast is about strategic prospecting for salespeople. Recently, we have been doing a lot of podcasts on sales. And personally, because I'm also an SDR currently, and I have been in tech sales for quite some time. So I understand the miseries and sorrows a salesperson goes through, and I'm sure our guest also goes through the same. So our guest is Caspian Lewke, if that's the right way of saying your name.
It is Caspian Lewke, 100%.
Yeah. And he's an SDR at Gong. And today we are talking about this topic of strategic prospecting for salespeople. That is something which I do every morning, every single morning. But would love to know from you, Caspian, a bit about yourself to begin with, and then probably moving into this part of what do you exactly mean by strategic prospecting from a layman's point of view and also from a salesperson's point of view.
Absolutely. Well, firstly, let me just say it's a pleasure to be on the podcast, Saurabh, and congratulations on your upcoming one-year anniversary. That's super, super exciting. Really quick background on me. Though I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area now, I was actually born in Germany. My family heritage on my dad's side is German, and moved to the Bay when I was very young, moved back to Germany for high school, and then have moved back to California, starting in LA, and then more recently to the San Francisco Bay Area again. So it's been exciting, been back and forth across in different countries, but found myself in tech sales. And really for me, strategic prospecting and strategic outreach really means three things. Number one, understanding who you're selling to. To be strategic, you need to know who you're targeting. And that plays into the second point, which is knowing what their problem is. In order to be strategic, in order to be unique, you need to understand what the people that you are selling to care about. And number three, once you know who you're selling to, once you know what their problems are, how do you reach out to them? So really, number three is standing out from the rest of the individuals, the rest of the SDRs that are trying to get your prospect's attention. So again, knowing who you're selling to, knowing what their problems are, and standing out as best you can from the rest of the people that are trying to reach out to them. And I can go more into that, but that's the highest level of what strategic prospecting, strategic outreach means to me.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic way to describe that. I would love to know more in detail about the second point. So how will you identify the problems that your customer is having, or how will you identify what your customer is thinking at what time? Some people say that maybe check out the top executives, the CEOs, the CFOs of those companies. And the best way to do that is probably go and check out the annual reports of the companies. Go and check out the LinkedIn profiles of those people. What are they interacting with? What are they liking? What are they commenting on? Or probably, just check their profiles and see what kind of activities do they like doing, and that kind of tells you that those are the pain points they have.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you can approach this from a macro and a micro level, both in a professional sense and a personal sense. So what I mean by that is, on a macro level, to your point, from a professional sense, checking out the 10Ks of the company is very helpful. Understanding, have there been recent layoffs? Have there been recent product updates? What is going on within the company overall? And then on a more micro level, but still in the professional realm, understanding if they're a VP of sales, follow, listen to sales podcasts, do research on what VPs of sales care about, which is often, making sure their entire team is hitting their number. If they are a startup, making sure that they're hitting their annual revenue goals, and really emulating best practices of top performers, making sure that everyone on their team is as successful as possible. On the flip side, if you're prospecting someone like a VP of customer success, they're more focused on retention, understanding where risks lie within their customer base, things like that. So again, macro level on the professional side would be understanding what's going on in the company. You mentioned looking at their LinkedIn. That is a great way to gain an understanding of what have they done in their past. You'd be surprised. A lot of people include things like they played soccer in university, or they're really passionate about golfing, or they love outdoor fishing. Those are ways that you can begin to tailor your outreach, right? You make it relevant to their company and their role from what you learned about their company and knowing what they care about in their role, right? If they're a VP of sales at a growing tech firm, you know what to say to spark their interest. But you can add an extra layer of personalization and uniqueness by understanding what they care about personally, right? If they played soccer, you can throw in a soccer pun, or you can do research on their favorite team. And for me, I enjoy being a bit goofy in my outreach, which I can go into a bit. But I enjoy doubling down on kind of marrying the personal and the professional interests, if that makes sense.
I think another question here can be for a lot of salespeople: how can one learn this art of strategic prospecting? Because it might not come naturally to everyone. So, are there any courses available online? I saw that you have taken recently one course, because I research well on people before I invite them to my podcast. So, I saw
Mhm.
that you have been a part of a social selling course recently,
Yeah.
and it has kind of helped you to understand how you can build your personal brand on LinkedIn, what kinds of content you should be posting on LinkedIn. And I think that's what you shared in that short snippet, which you have posted on their website. So, what do you have to say about strategic prospecting and social selling in general? How can people build this art?
Yeah, it's a great question. Fortunately, to your point, there are a lot of courses on this, and for me, I would say there are several, and I don't know all of them. I wish I did, which have been really impactful in different ways. And I haven't completed all three. I'm still kind of in the core. I'm in different stages of each one, if you will, and have I'm still learning more about this. But one is, to your point, Landon Meyer's social selling course. He really does a great job of helping you understand not only how you can build your brand on LinkedIn, but how you can begin to interact best with your prospects, right? So you no longer are strictly doing outbound. You might be, because of your brand that you've built, be receiving more inbound requests, which of course is the dream of every SDR and every salesperson, right? So Landon Meyer's course is excellent. And I'd say it's a very holistic approach to building your brand. The Catherine Caldwell is also excellent. She also focuses on LinkedIn and social selling, but more so tailored to unique outreach in terms of making videos and what do you say in those videos. So I would say it approaches a similar problem, but from a different angle, which is great. And then finally, again, if you want something that encapsulates everything and is more of tailored towards accountability and understanding best practices, there's something called Brand 30, which I'm a part of, which is led by Andrew Mewborn, who's at Outreach. And again, it does a really good job of helping you understand not only how to build your brand, but how can you build consistency in the content that you're posting and understand how to tailor what you are posting to what your prospects might care about, while also bringing in a bit of your personality. So they each, Landon Myers, Catherine Caldwell's, Andrew Newborn's courses approach social selling differently, but in an amazing way. And I'm just very blessed to have gotten a chance to learn from each of them in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And are there any specific salespeople on LinkedIn or in general that you find are an inspiration for you, and you might want to list them down for our listeners?
Absolutely. So I gotta give credit to the GOATs. For me, Sam Nelson, when I was first getting into the SDR world and first getting into the tech world, you might know him. He's the guy with the blue hair, was at Outreach for a long time. Just phenomenal at what he does, really cares about helping current SDRs succeed in their role and aspiring SDRs break into the tech world. So for me, Sam will always be kind of the GOAT of SDR, of the SDR world. More holistically, Josh Braun, phenomenal, right? That is a true salesperson through and through. And he always posts extremely consistently. And he also addresses, especially more recently, the importance of mental health in sales, right? Not the fact that you're not your number. Of course, we're judged on our number. We all want our number to be great, but you are a human, you are a person, you are more than that. And so I love that he calls that out. So those are the two, I think more well-known people I follow. To be honest, I know I mentioned him already, but Landon Meyer, if you haven't checked out his content, he started posting more consistently only a few months ago, but it's been inspiring to see how he has grown, how his career has grown, how his following has grown in over the past few months. And finally, Heidi Solomon Orlick, she's founder and CEO of Girls Who Sell, while also being SVP of Business Development at Arise, and is just an inspiration in so many ways. And again, I just feel blessed to have gotten a chance to learn more about these people through LinkedIn. So we mentioned social selling in terms of, often reaching out to prospects, but there's also a huge upside of LinkedIn of just learning from other people, right? Just getting a chance to see what it is that they care about and striving to emulate some of their best practices and things like that. So for me, those are two different categories of influencers, but amazing people.
Yep, I think those are some really great suggestions that you have just provided. But just moving away from that now and trying to dig a bit deeper about your day-to-day challenges in your sales life, because a lot of people have different kind of challenges, and sales is not easy, right? It's not everyone's cup of tea as well. And of course, a sale is a sale only when somebody pays you. You might talk to 100 people in a day. You might get out of that 20 people in a meeting, and you might out of that get 10 signups into your system, and you might just get one customer to buy your product. So such is the life of a salesperson. But what kind of challenges do you face on a day-to-day basis, and how do you overcome those challenges? It can be challenges related to the mental effect that it has, or the anxiety that it has. So would you love to list them down for yourself?
Yeah. Oh, 1000%. I mean, this first problem is not unique, but rejection, of course, salespeople, especially SDRs, deal with a lot of rejection. I always joke that you can really put cold in front of every method of outreach, and that is a lot of what an SDR does, right? Cold calling, cold emailing, cold LinkedIn messages, whatever the case may be. And so understandably, not everyone that you reach out to is going to want to talk to you, and that's okay. That's completely fine. So understanding, and I know I mentioned this already, but that you're not your number, that it's not, a good day isn't defined by, did I book a meeting? Did I not book a meeting? A good day is defined by, well, I could treat this more holistically and, talk about spending time with people you love, things like that. But if I'm speaking more in the professional sense, a good day is understanding, have I done what I set out to do? And if not, why not? And applying those learnings for the next day. So for me, number one, definitely a challenge is rejection. And tied into that is understanding how to deal with that, and that removing yourself from the outcome, right? It's not unique, but it is definitely a challenge. If I speak more specifically to some of the other challenges I face, Gong, phenomenal company, and has grown a lot. And some challenges now is that people have preconceived notions of what the product is, things like that. And so I need to be really specific and tailored in my outreach, because I need the messages that I use to hit home, to resonate with the people that I'm messaging, because there's no longer, well, there is always green field, but I have a book of business that I'm responsible for going after. I have target accounts. And so I need to make sure that, if you think about it like shooting an arrow, I need to make sure that that arrow is directed as well and as strategically as possible, which is why I strive to do as unique outreach as possible, right? I send gifts. I write a lot of hopefully goofy and like funny emails. I think they're funny. I hope other people do as well. And so for me, just really making my outreach count, I would say is important, because I have a certain amount of accounts that I'm going after, and that's ultimately the accounts that I'm responsible for beginning conversations with. So I would say, on a personal level, dealing with rejection, understanding that I'm not my number, and removing myself from the outcome. And in a professional sense, holding myself accountable to making my outreach as impactful as possible is both a challenge, but also something that's pretty exciting, and that, is a constant work in progress, just like I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the last 1 week, I have been discussing a lot of sales, because there have been a few topics that we have discussed in the last 1 week itself, in terms of the role of storytelling in sales. Or I think 1 week back, we were joined by a guy called Benjamin from the UK, and he says that he's considered to be UK's most hated sales trainer. And I asked him, why do you consider yourself like that? He says, Saurabh, that's my USP, because nobody wants to be hated. Everybody wants to be an expert in sales or a guru in
Yeah.
sales. Now, when I say that I want to be a hated sales trainer, even if somebody would not want to visit my profile, they'll just go and see, what does that guy mean by saying hated sales trainer? So that's a USP for him. And he was saying that actually the rejection of any idea is not a rejection on you as a person, so you should never take it personally. It's a rejection of your product or the solution that you're offering. And just correlating it with what my co-host said a few days back, George Mavros, he said that you need to sell the right product to the right person at the right time. Only then you can make the sale count. And otherwise, you are not selling either to the right person, or you're not selling at the right time, or you're not selling at the right place. That's why you're not able to sell the product. So if you are able to sync these three things, and I think that's a very good point, I feel. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Oh, 1000%. I mean, you can have the most amazing product in the world, but if there's not the budget, if there's not the need, there won't be a fit, right? Ultimately, I think sales is about finding a fit. Is there a fit here? And if not, that's okay, because there are, to your point, and to the co-founder of this podcast's point, there are a lot of things that need to be in line in order for that sale to take place, right? And even, this is also sometimes, even in our personal life, we might experience this, right? If I go into a shoe store and I really like these shoes, and they seem incredible, but then I realize that, I don't have the budget for them. I could have the desire, I could have, I'm the decision maker, but I just don't have the budget, right? And that can stop a sale in its tracks. And that's just an example from our personal life. Of course, in B2B sales, things are that much more challenging, right? Normally there's more than one decision maker. sometimes you got to get approval from multiple people. You need to communicate the need, and there needs to be a strong enough need, again, felt by different stakeholders for things to move forward. So 1000% agree. And it's something we might not always think about in our personal life, but again, we experience it. I use the shoe store example kind of jokily, but if I had unlimited budget, I'd be on Amazon way more.
Yeah. And I think with one of the facts that we discussed just 2 podcasts before was that fact of storytelling and what kind of impact storytelling has on the lives of a great salesperson. A lot of salespeople who are good in sales um, are most often, I'm not generalizing it, but most often they're also good storytellers. They understand how to narrate the story of their product. They understand how the story can be sold to a customer. One of the key elements of storytelling is also called humor, which I think I discussed with you before we had to record this podcast. And that's why I wanted to bring humor, in fact, a part of storytelling. When I talk to a customer and bring in the humor element, um, make it a bit lively, make it a bit funny. People will definitely want to listen it, even if they don't have time or they don't like the product, but they'll still give me one chance to talk to them, isn't it?
Oh, 1000%. I sometimes feel like I might use humor as a crutch, in a variety of scenarios, but you're so right. I think that humor is a way, in sales and in the professional world, sometimes we can feel the need to be really buttoned up, right? Really formal, and that's great. Professionalism is important, but at the end of the day, we're all people, right? And everyone has a different sense of humor, but I think that humor is important in communicating that you're a person and that that the person that you're selling to is a person, right? We use these terms like prospects, buyers, decision makers, and people can be that, but again, they're also people. They're humans, right? Human beings. So I really I enjoy humor, and that's where I think, kind of bring this back to initially, like strategic outreach, strategic prospecting. When you learn about a person, you can gain a better idea for what their humor might be, or a particular area you can joke about, right? So, for example, there was a prospect of mine I knew really enjoyed this specific TV show. So I wound up sending them a mug with this TV show, like a mug from the TV show, and then tailored all my messaging around this goofy TV show and kind of referred to a lot of the characters, and it was great. And we ended up having a great conversation, and that would have never happened had I not, well, of course, like first noticed that they like this TV show, but had I not tailored my outreach to that. So I think that humor is a great way, again, of just expressing that you're a human being, they're a human being, and as long as you keep it professional, I think can be a great way to build rapport and also have some fun, to be honest. So I think anything can be well done and poorly done. But I love using humor in my outreach, and I hope the people that I reach out to think that some of my messages are funny. And if not, that's fair as well. I'm sure not everyone thinks I'm funny, and that's okay as well.
Yeah, and I think it just catches the attention of someone, even if you're not selling to the right person. Like I have experienced this. If you give a call sometimes to a wrong person as well, but if you are having a good storytelling ability, or if you are just telling about the product in a very experienced and mature way, and not just marketing it,
Yeah.
but actually showing your expertise. I have heard from some of my customers that I really liked your story, and I will refer it to someone if there is anyone whom I know in the market is in need of your product. So that's the kind of impact that you can create. But before we end today's podcast, Caspian, I would like to ask you one last question, and that's like a tradition of this podcast, that if you have to sum up this episode in
Yeah.
top 2 or 3 points, especially for people. So I think it's going to be daytime for you. salespeople are going to start their day. For me, tomorrow when I share this episode, some salespeople will listen to this as a motivation. What will you say to them in 2-3 points that they should take away from this episode?
Ooh, really good question. I would say, if I could encapsulate it all, do my best. One is strategically prospect and outreach. You got to know who you're selling to, what their problem is, and stand out from the rest. Number 2 is understand you are not your number. You're much more than that. You're a human being, and rejection is okay, right? That doesn't define you. And 3 is also enjoy work. For me, that means being kind of goofy, joking around a little bit. Do whatever that is for you. At the end of the day, again, we're all human beings, and I think life is meant to be enjoyed. So that's what I would say if I could sum up this podcast.
Absolutely fantastic. I think it was really lovely talking to you, Caspian, and I'm sure that people are going to learn something new from whatever you have shared in this episode. And I'm sure we are going to get some really engaging comments and discussion points when we post it out on LinkedIn and other channels. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending time with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This is an Ultimate Global podcast. Hello, and welcome to our special weekly podcast on trending international and social affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.